Hi, it's me, E. Davis, CEO of Writer's Block Publishing LLC. And today I'm going to talk to you about some writing techniques, about writing a book. So, first, subscribe to my channel. Remember, send me an email at writersblockpub@yahoo.com. Please feel free to take a look at the social media sites, Instagram, Writers Block Publishing LLC, Twitter, Block Publish, and of course on Facebook at Writers Block Publishing LLC. So, when it comes to writing a book, it's to me, because I'm a writer, it does come naturally. I do have an active imagination. Um, I've been told that my head is always in the clouds. I am always daydreaming. Sometimes my husband will see me with a blank stare on my face and he goes, "What are you thinking?" But sometimes for those who feel led to write a book, do struggle with the concept of creating characters, struggle with the concept of the plot development, and there, of course, those that have an extraordinary life, who've been through a lot of things, who are encouraged to write a book. They're kind of stuck on. They say, "Where do I start?" And people will come to me and they say, "Well, I want to write a book." And I say, "Okay, well, cool, write a book." But then they'll ask, "Where do I start?" And of course, the obvious question is in the beginning. So right now, I'm just going to go over a few writing techniques on creative writing, on plot development, character development, and even on even encouraging how to write your memoirs or your bios, so to speak. So first, you want to think about all the different types of writing. So we have novels or novellas. We have poetry or songwriting. We have plays and screenplays. There's autobiographies and biographies, and there's journalism. Okay. Um, First, before we even get into detail, I would like to share how I became a writer. As mentioned, this is something that comes natural to me. I knew that when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a writer. And the funny thing about that is, I was grounded for not doing my homework. My father and my mother put me on punishment, maybe for about a week or 2 weeks with no TV, no coming out of my room, just come straight home from school, sit in your room, and just nothing. So on a Friday afternoon or Friday evening, my father came into my room and he said, "You can watch TV if you want," which was in daddy code, "You're off punishment." My In my room was an old black and white TV that was probably no bigger than a computer monitor, just a small screen computer monitor. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It belonged to my great grandmother Rosie. And when it didn't work, it was all black with pinstripe lines. When it did work, then it worked. So when I turned the TV on, the Jeffersons were on. And I did not want to change the channel in fear that the TV may not work. So what I did was I just left it on and I had my dolls and I was doing me. And Florence said that she was going to write a book. I knew right then and there I was going to be a writer. So that started my quest for writing. And every chance I got, I was writing. Every chance I got, I was reading. And just last summer, 2017, I Googled that episode of The Jeffersons. And that episode is called, I believe it's season 7, when as Florence turns. And Florence had the idea of writing a soap opera. So a week or so later, it actually came on TV, and I watched it, and that was the first time I seen it since I was a kid. So wow, I was 8 years old then. I'm 42 year old. I'm 42 years old now. So just imagine how much time had passed just for me wanting to write. So wow, that's my story of how I became a writer. And so when you're writing a book, you do want to think about what type of writing you want to do. Is it dealing with motivational writing, inspirational writing? Do you want to write fiction or nonfiction? Do you want to write an educational book or something even do with self help, which is also in the lines of motivational, but It all depends on the aim you're going for. Um, who is your target audience? That's something that you need to think about. Um, when was the moment you knew that you were going to write a book? Such as the moment I knew that I was going to be a writer. We often get encouraged to write a book based off of success or tragedies, or just to motivate, or just to get a word out of who we are. We um, we become storytellers. Now, when you are creative writing, you want to think of what is the inspiration. So when it comes to creative writing, we're thinking about the inspiration. Um, is it music? Was it a song that inspired you? Is it a sunset or a sunrise? Um, was it a book that you read? Is it animals? We do have a lot of animal lovers out there in the world. Is it an individual? Was it something that, think of the book, Mitch Albom, I think his name was, he wrote Tuesday with Morrie. He was inspired for that book. Is it a situation, such as I mentioned before, that something in your life that was either traumatic or a celebratory, oh, I can't talk today, a celebratory moment that inspired you to write your book? Or is it just something to do with colors? Were you inspired by the color purple or the color blue or the color green? And it's just to name a few that will ignite the creativity. With my book, A Period of Time, and I'm going to get that book for you in a moment, this book right here. This was my first official book that I've written and that I published. I was ironically inspired by the movie Rocky. Now, those that know me, friends and family, they know that Rocky is my all time favorite movie. I am the biggest Rocky fan. Um, I would probably say I'm the biggest Rocky fan ever in life, but of course, there's some who probably know more about, who have more Rocky trivia than me. But there's just something beautiful and magnificent about the story Rocky, the love story between him and Adrian that inspired my characters in a period of time. That inspired me to create the characters in a period of time. Also, there was a situation I was watching The Wizard of Oz. Um, there's something magical about Emerald City. So when I um, got ready to write A Period of Time, I based my character's love story off the love story of Rocky and Adrian, and I named the main character Emerald. So that was the motivation that ignited this book. Okay. Also, with creative writing and dealing with your inspiration is dealing with your muse. What is your muse? And that also with your inspiration. When I wrote, let me get the book for you, Another Slice of Pie. Okay. I was inspired by, here's the book, Another Slice of Pie. I was inspired by a robin redbreast. There's something beautiful about the robin redbreast. And I think it's because I'm in Pittsburgh and right now it's predicted to be a big blizzard. Um, we've been getting this blizzard prediction since Thursday. But nevertheless, when I see a robin redbreast during the winter time, that means I know that spring is on the way. Now, I'm a little biased and partial to spring, maybe because I'm born in the spring, but seeing a robin redbreast is just something beautiful to me. And the name Robin was something that I like to hear. So my character in Another Slice of Pie, her name is Robin, and that was my muse. Also, my muse, and I will say that it's kind of embarrassing, but that's okay. I am my muse is Johnny Depp. There's something about Johnny Depp as an actor that creates a lot of creativity in me. Now, our work has nothing to do with the other. Like, I don't write anything dealing with eccentric characters. I don't write anything to do with loner characters. But there's just something about him as an artist and as a writer. Um, Now, to be fair, when I don't go looking for Johnny Depp, I don't go Googling images or binge watching movies or anything like that. But I do know that when I happen to see him on a repetitive basis, I know I need to kind of pay attention to the subtle signs that are about to come that will lead into my inspiration. Creative writing allows your imagination to take place, allows you to take control, allows you to relinquish control, allow your imagination to take control. And if that's hard to fathom, think of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And again, I'm going back to my childhood. Mr. Rogers, when I was a kid, my prime time was Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. My parents would come home and I would sit in front of a TV and watch Sesame Street and, of course, Mr. Rogers. And um, that would take you out of your, I guess, of course, your natural realm into the imagination, into the imaginary realm. And if you think of Mr. Rogers' make believe, you think of X the Owl and Daniel the Tiger. And this help you to be creative because anything is possible when you're in your creative world. Anything is possible when you imagine. You can be in a new city, a city that, of course, is not nowhere in the world, but it's your city. Um, or you could create a new world. Just think of the opportunities that your imagination will allow you to do. Also, with creative writing, um, you have to, if you own the fact that we all have a creative button in us, okay, just because you may not be a natural writer does not mean that you're not creative. You could be an interior designer, you could be a great organizer, um, a photographer, a fashion designer or stylist, or a hairdresser or hairstylist. It all depends on how you tap into it, because when you tap into that creativity, that allows your imagination to flow, and then you can write down what it is that you are creating. Okay, the next point I want to talk about with creative writing is when I teach my um, workshops, my writing workshops. One of the stories that I like to play with is The Three Little Pigs. That is an awesome story. And if you think about the protagonist in the story, the pro is the three little pigs. And of course, the antagonist would be the big bad wolf, the bad guy. And the creativity concept behind that is each pig built their home differently. You got the straw, you got the sticks, you got the bricks. Now, we all know that, of course, the bricks was the better choice of material to use, but on the creative level, that shows the creativity behind each pig, if you think about it. Um, and then each pig would say the little nursery rhyme. And that was the creativity used by the author to encourage the children to 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 get them to participate in story time, or just kind of help them to um, tap into their creativity. So remember the nursery rhyme, little pig, let me in. And then the little pigs would say, not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin. So that was something fun as a kid because you can sing it and you can shout it when you're reading. I had a teacher when I was a kid named Miss Snow, and we were in the library, and she would help us to tap into your creativity. She would tell us to reach really high and grab your cloud. And when you grab your cloud, you had to sit down your cloud so you could be very comfortable. And she would read us the story. And once, I would say for me, because I was that kid, but once I was on my cloud, I was ready for my story. I didn't think about anything else. I was all engaged into the story time. Now, when it comes to plot development, that can be tricky because it's like, what do we do? Or how did the character get from point A to point B? And that's your job as a writer to engage the reader to show us where your character was going. Okay, so you have to think of the why in your story. Um, the plot is to draw the reader into the character's lives. It helps the reader understand the choices that the character makes, and the plot structures is the way that it in which the story elements are arranged. As mentioned with some of my previous books, say A Period of Time, I was inspired by the love story of Rocky and Adrian, but because of the character development that I did with my two main characters, Emerald DeMarco Richard DeMarco and Emerald Dixon, that helped structure my plot for the story. And I also was identifying to the characters. Also, when you're writing, you want to think of your genre. That helps develop your plot. Are you writing a love story? A period of time is definitely a love story. Are you writing a mystery or suspense? Are you writing a horror story? Are you writing an autobiography? Now, an autobiography, there's not really a plot, but the plot is the timeline of from the moment you start your book to the transitioning to the end of the book. Rather, I can use Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing. Her timeline is she's referring to her time when she was a kid in Stamps, Arkansas, up until when she was an adult and gave birth to her son, Guy. Determining your genre will help you develop your plot because then you can structure your characters on where they're going. Plot points that you need to think of. Of course, there's a beginning and there's the inciting moments that start your story off. Okay, there's the exposition. There's a rising action. This is leading up to the first point of really what's going on. There's the complication. It's what is the issue? Why is your character at this stage in her life? Why is your character dealing with these issues in her life? There's the middle climax because the first situation may be resolved, but there might be another issue that we're dealing with. Think of the book Twilight, Stephenie Meyers, which is an awesome book. So the first issue was Bella moving into Forks and making friends with her classmates. And then, of course, there's Edward. And if you remember in the book, Edward seemed to not like her. So the issue is, what is Edward's problem? Okay, so once we find out what Edward's problem is, now the next issue is dealing with the other surrounding characters. So if you haven't read Twilight or seen the movie, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you did see it, of course you would know. Once she and Edward got through the first rising action, now there's the middle climax. There's a reversal. There's the falling action. There's a denouement, and there's the moment of end and last suspense. Okay, then we have character development. So thinking about your character development is you want to think of who your character is. First of all, is your character male or female? What is the race of your character? Is your character white, black, Indian, Mexican, Martian, alien, whatever? Height and weight. Is your character tall, short, petite? Is it super skinny, thin? Is your character overweight? What is your character's occupation? John Grisham, we all know, all our Grisham fans out there, we know that most of his characters are lawyers. The Alex Cross series by James Patterson, we know that Alex Cross is a detective. What is your character's hobbies and interest? Is the character you? Are you writing your story? What is it that you like to do? What do you look like? Describe yourself in your book. Because once again, not only does that help develop your plot, but it also creates your, help ignites your creativity. With this concept of the three little pigs, each pig had their own personality because they built their home each differently. Understand the characters are like people. From the beginning of the story, we like to see the character grow. We like to see them in a coming of age. We like to see how they started and where will they end up. Also, you want to introduce your characters by name. Give the readers a good idea of who they are. Such as, in my book, A Period of Time, Emerald Dixon. Emerald Dixon is a writer because she wrote a 7-book series. Okay. What is their backstory? Where are they from? What do they like to do? Make them human, flawed. What is their issues? Or do they have quirks? Do they have a little OCD? Are they shy? Are they controlling? These are the flaws that we need to see in the character. The reader needs to see that in the character, so the reader can either love or hate the character. you want some type of emotion from your reader. Now, you want enough emotion for them to keep reading, but you want to have some type of emotion to get your reader intrigued. Do they have some type of heroic qualities? Emphasize his or her inner life as well as surface problems. You can draw on your own experiences. You want to keep the character's arc in mind. When I talk about the character arc, I like to talk about the characters from the TV show Sex and the City. Um, that's one of my guilty pleasures. I am a big Sex and the City fan. I have, of course, the DVDs. I have the movies. I've watched on Amazon Prime Videos. I love the fashion. I love everything. But one of the arcs that I noticed in Sex and the City was the baby that Miranda and Steve had to Samantha. The baby was Samantha's arc because Samantha liked the bond that she had with her friends Charlotte, Miranda, and of course Carrie. She liked the independence and the freedom to do what she wanted to do. The baby represented change in the dynamic for all the characters, and that was the arc that Samantha had to deal with. So think about it. It's season 5. So when Miranda has the baby up until the very last episode of season 5, you see her transitioning of getting over that arc. This is a little tip that I want to shout out to all my Sex and the City fans that are watching. Um, and if you need to do your research, don't skimp because it is important to know your facts, whether you're writing a factual story, such as a period piece, or if you're just being creative or just having fun, you do have to do your research. I was working on a fantasy, and my character had a basic name. And a woman I was talking to is a fantasy writer, and I told her the character's name, and she said, "Nope, you humanized it," because a lot of fantasies have unusual names. So she encouraged me to choose a different name. Now, because I did my research, I did find that fact to be true, that you want to have an unusual name because it's a fantasy, it's not quote unquote of this world or of something realistic. But I did choose to keep the character's name because I had to restructure my book because I didn't want anything that my readers had to sound out in order to keep the name. Okay, and those are just basically the points on writing a book. I was working from my computer, my PowerPoint. I'm a little techno challenged, so bear with me with a lot of clicking and a lot of looking away. However, when you do write, these are the tips that you want to take with you. I will have these on my blog. You can find that through my website, Writers Block Publishing LLC. Please take a moment to see us on Instagram at Writers Block Publishing LLC. Send me an email at writersblockpub@yahoo.com. I will respond back to you. I love to communicate with you. Or you can just check me out on Facebook at Writers Block. Or we also have a blog now. I'll be posting some information concerning the blog talk where you can call in and talk with me personally. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you. I'll be looking forward to communicating with you and sharing more information with you. So next time we are on live, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss with you about battling writer's block, not the company, the issue of moving forward in your book. There's a little secret tip that I like to share with everyone who is stuck, but I'm not going to talk about that now. If you're going to write right now, I encourage you to just jot down some ideas on the tips that I shared with you. My son is messaging me. I would like to talk with you. I want you to jot down some ideas on the tips I shared with you about plot development, creative writing, character development, and then message me that information. And if I can help you, I'll be happy to help you. All right, everyone. It was nice talk with you. Enjoy your Saturday. Have a great